הקדושה, שלום לך עיר. בתוך אור טהור פנייך עיר, ציון הקדושה, שלום לך עיר. בתוך אור גדול פנייך עיר, ציון הקדושה, שלום לך עיר. כמו אור טהור פנייך עיר, ציון הקדושה, שלום לך עיר. בתוך אור טהור פנייך עיר, ציון הקדושה, שלום לך עיר. כמו אור גדול פנייך עיר, ציון הקדושה, שלום לך עיר. כמו אור טהור פנייך עיר, ציון הקדושה, שלום לך עיר. כמו אור גדול פנייך עיר, ציון הקדושה, שלום לך עיר. Selam selam leki, selam selam leki, selam selam leki, Hagera bahawina. Selam selam leki, selam selam leki, selam selam leki.
Hey everyone, it is great to see you. We are really fortunate. I'm with Naftali Aklum, and we're going to spend some time with Naftali, who's going to tell us his story, but also a much larger story. And as we find often when we travel through Israel, the personal experience and the personal narrative oftentimes overlaps very nicely with the more national and communal experience. And that's what we're going to discover. Naftali, where are we?
So first of all, thank you so much for the opportunity. Right now we are in the city of Beersheva, the capital of the Negev. We are standing right in front the first Ethiopian synagogue in Beersheva, Shavu Banin. I think it will be better if we will go inside and check it out. We are in Shavu Banin Center, Shavu Banin, first Ethiopian synagogue in Beersheva. Right now we are in a very special room, a room that shows some of the culture and art of the Ethiopian Jews. As you can see, we can see embroidery work and artwork from the Ethiopian Jewish community. All this artwork was created by the Ethiopian Jewish community right here in Beersheva. This room also tells the story of our history. I don't know if you guys know, but as you can see here, we see the spiritual leaders, the leaders that kept our Judaism for more than 2,500 years. We're speaking about the Kesim. Now, if we speak about the history of the Ethiopian Jews, a lot of people ask me how Ethiopian Jews arrived to Ethiopia. There is a lot of version of how the Ethiopian Jews came to Ethiopia. One version speak about the version of King Solomon and Queen Sheba. As we all know, King Solomon was the wisest man on earth, and all the kings and the queens in his time wanted to come to this area to know King Solomon, to have some agreement with him. Queen Sheba used to control the countries that we know today, Ethiopia, Eritrea, Yemen, Sudan. All this area used to call Kush, and she was the queen of that area. And she also heard about King Solomon. So she came here, they fell in love, and they brought a son to the world, Menachem I. Now Menachem, after a few years, came back to this area to visit his dad. After a few months, his father, King Solomon, told him that he had to go back to Kush. But King Solomon didn't send his son alone. He sent thousands of people back with him to Ethiopia. And some believe that we, the Ethiopian Jews, came out from the thousands of people that King Solomon sent back with his son Menachem to Kush. Great. That's the first version. So the second version, which is the version that we, the Ethiopian Jews, believe, is after the destruction of the first temple, when King Nebuchadnezzar came and conquered this area, we had a tribe of Israel here. One tribe decided to escape to the south to Egypt. Now, if we know the Nile River, we have the blue Nile River and we have the white Nile River. The blue Nile River starts in Ethiopia. This tribe walked through the Blue Nile River until they ended up in Ethiopia. And we are speaking about the tribe of Dan. We, the Ethiopian Jews, believe that we belong to the tribe of Dan. Now we are speaking about ancient community that for thousands of years fought that they are the only Jews left in the world. And if they will not keep Judaism, Judaism will disappear. One of the things that we had was that we didn't have any relationship over the years to any other Jewish community in the world. For example, the Jewish community in Toledo, Spain always had some relationship with the Jewish community in Fes, Morocco. The rabbi here used to send letters to the rabbi there. The Ethiopian Jewish community were isolated. By the way, this is why we never had the oral Torah. No one told us that there is oral Torah because we didn't have any relationship. We left after the destruction of the first temple. At that time there was no oral Torah, only written Torah. For many, many years, kings and queens in Ethiopia, Christianity came to Ethiopia in the 4th century. And during the years, lots of kings and queens wanted to convert the Ethiopian Jews into Christianity. But because of the Kesim, we kept our Judaism for more than 2,500 years in the diaspora. The only time that we had some relationship with Jews outside of Ethiopia, it was in the end of the 19th century. There was a special guy, a Jewish guy from Paris, Joseph Alevi, that came to do research on different tribes in Ethiopia. And he found a Jewish community living in Ethiopia. He saw a community that keeping Shabbat, keeping kosher, going to synagogue, and he was the first one to deliver that message that there are Jews in Ethiopia. So he went to Europe and started to spread the rumors that there are Jews in Ethiopia. You know what? Why don't we go outside and meet the rabbi of this community, Rabbi Avram Mahari.
שלום וברכה רבה, יהי רצון בעזרת השם שנזכה לשנה טובה וגמר חתימה טובה לנו ולכל אחינו בית ישראל בכל מקום ובכל אתר ואתר. אנחנו כאן תחת קהילת קודש שבו בנים, קהילת קודש יהודי אתיופיה, שוכני עיר הקודש, עיר האבות באר שבע, ובפרט במקום הזה שבו אנחנו נמצאים כעת, כולל ובית מדרש ללימוד הוראה ודיינות שעל ידי הקהילה. עבור בני הקהילה, קהילת יהודי אתיופיה, ובכלל כל כלל עמך בית ישראל. וזה מה שמחבר אותנו בעצם. הלימוד הזה שאנחנו לומדים, לימוד התורה שאנחנו מתעלים, עם ישראל, כידוע לכולנו, גלה לכל מקום ונקודה בעולם. זו הסיבה שבארצנו הקדושה, ארץ מיוחדת שיש בה את כל המגוון שקיים בעולם מבחינת שפות, מבחינת תרבות, וכל אחד מביא איתו את האור שבו. וזכתה הקהילה שלנו, קהילת יהודי אתיופיה, להביא הרבה אור מיוחד שמאפיין אותה, שמייחד אותה. ולכן זה פאזל שלם שהוא מורכב מהמון המון חלקים, ואילולא שיהיה את כל החלקים אז אי אפשר לראות את התמונה, התמונה לא שלמה. וזה החלק שלנו, קהילת יהודי אתיופיה, שהביאה איתה את התרבות של הדרך ארץ, של הנימוס, של הכבוד, של הערכים, של הכבוד לאדם, כבוד למבוגר, אהבת הזולת, אהבת הבורא, דבקות, תמימות. מה המחנה המשותף? כדי שלעם יהיה חיבור צריך שיהיה לו לאום, צריך שיהיה לו חזון משותף שמחבר אותנו. זוהי התורה הקדושה, שלמרות כל הגלויות, כל הרדיפות, כל הדברים הקשים שעם ישראל עבר במסירות נפש, בחירוף נפש בכל מקום, התורה היא הייתה שפה שמחברת אותנו ואומרת, אתה צועק שמע ישראל, אתה אומר ברוך אתה השם, אז אנחנו אחד. אתה אח שלי, אני אחיך. בבית המדרש אנחנו ממשיכים את המסורת, את המורשת, את הדבר הזה שמחבר אותנו כעם אחד, על ידי לימוד בעומק וברוחב ובהיקף, בדברים ובסוגיות ובנושאים והעניינים העמוקים בתורה, לימוד של הלכה וגמרא. לכן מכאן נשגר ברכה לכל אחינו בית ישראל, שיהי רצון בעזרת השם יתברך, שזכות התורה תגן בעדנו, בעד אחינו כל בית ישראל בכל מקום ובכל אתר ואתר. תתקיים בנו ברכת התורה. עוד עץ חיים היא למחזיקים בה ותומכי המאושר. נזכה לשנים רבות, נעימות וטובות, גמר חתימה טובה.
This synagogue gives services to more than 500 Ethiopian Jews that live here in this area. One of the things that we spoke about was that the Ethiopian Jews didn't have the oral Torah. But when we came to Israel in the beginning of 1980s, they told us, hey guys, there is one more Torah. So of course now we accept the oral Torah and the written Torah, and this synagogue, we're not praying the way we used to pray in Ethiopia. The one that used to lead the services in Ethiopia was our spiritual leaders, the Kesim. Unfortunately, they are not the one that lead the services anymore. Today we have rabbis within the Ethiopian Jewish community that lead their services here in the synagogue, and I hope that one day the rabbinites will accept the Kesim, our spiritual leaders from Ethiopia, and they will be able to return to give services in the synagogue. So as you can see, a normal synagogue, but the unique thing is that it's belonged to the Ethiopian Jewish community here in Be'er Sheva. So in 1952, the government of Israel passed a special law here in Israel, the law of return. But why the Ethiopian Jews didn't came to Israel in 1952? Unfortunately, the rabbinate here in Israel didn't recognize Ethiopian Jews as Jews until 1973. In 1973 in Israel we had the Sephardi chief rabbi, Rabbi Ovadia himself, who was the first rabbi to announce and to say it loud and clear, Ethiopian Jews are Jews, and we have to do everything in our power to bring them from Ethiopia to Israel. In 1975, the Ashkenaz chief rabbi, Rabbi Shlomo Goren, also announced that Ethiopian Jews are Jews, and we have to do everything to bring them to Israel. In 1975, it was the government of Yitzhak Rabin. So in 1975, they applied the law of return on the Ethiopian Jews. But guess what? Ethiopian Jews didn't came in 1975. They didn't came in 1976, not in 1977. What was the reason? In Ethiopia, in 1974, we had the last emperor, Emperor Haile Selassie. In 1974, we also had an army revolution. A dictator controlled the country. His name was Mengistu Haile Mariam, and he decided that Ethiopia will be a communist country and that she will belong to the communist part of the world. Therefore, there was no relationship between the state of Israel and Ethiopia. And in 1977, the Likud party won the election, and the new prime minister was Menachem Begin. Menachem Begin, one of the first things that he did as a prime minister was to invite to his office the head of the Mossad then, Yitzhak Hofi, and he told him, bring me the Ethiopian Jews. But there was no way to bring the Ethiopian Jews yet. Mengistu Haile Mariam, the dictator of Ethiopia, had some problems in his own country. There was groups that started to rebel against his regime, and he needed help. And the government of Israel saw an opportunity to bring the Ethiopian Jews, so they spoke with the dictator of Ethiopia, Mengistu Haile Mariam, and they offered him what we call the arm deal. The arm deal, it's a deal between Ethiopia and Israel. Israel is willing to give weapon and advice to Mengistu Haile Mariam so that he will be able to fight against those groups that start to rebel against him, and in return, all you have to do is to let some thousands of Ethiopian Jews leave the country. Everyone agreed. Mengistu Haile Mariam said that it have to be a secret deal because of the Cold War situation. And everyone agreed. In 1977, the state of Israel started to send Mossad agents to Ethiopia. But those Mossad agents came to Ethiopia, to a big country in Africa. They don't speak the language, the national language, Amharic. They don't know exactly where are the Jews' villages, which mean they needed help. And one of the people that they were asking help from was my late brother, Ferede Aklum Yazezo. Now we are in the memorial square and garden of Ferede Aklum, the man who opened the gates for Ethiopian Jews to fulfill their dream to come to Israel after more than 2,500 years via Sudan to Israel. And I think if we will find a shade to speak a little bit about his activities and about the things that he done, that will be great. This is the square after the name of Ferede Aklum, the Mossad man leader who opened the gates for the Ethiopian Jews to come to Israel, the one that set what we call after Operation Moses, a leader and one of the biggest leaders of the Ethiopian Jewish community, my late brother Ferede Aklum Yazezo. So Ferede Aklum was a teacher in the organization Ort opened school for the Ethiopian Jews in the late 1960s to prepare them for the day that they will come to Israel. When the Mossad agent came in 1977, my brother was the one that they were asking help from. They told him, hey, we have a list of 120 Ethiopian Jews from the Gondar area. We want you to bring them to the capital city, Addis Ababa. In 1977, from Addis Ababa to Gondar, we're speaking about 3 days by bus. And my brother planned, organized, found the 120 Ethiopian Jews, and he brought them from Gondar to Addis Ababa. In July 1977, for the first time, 120 Ethiopian Jews coming legally to the state of Israel for the first time. Few days after the group arrived in Israel, at that time we had the foreign minister Moshe Dayan, and Moshe Dayan had a press conference in Geneva. One of the journalists asked him about a possibility of a deal between Ethiopia and Israel. Now we all know that it was a secret deal, but unfortunately Moshe Dayan spoke freely about this deal, and he actually told the world about the deal between Ethiopia to Israel. When the dictator of Ethiopia heard about that, the first thing that he did was to cancel the deal. He told all the Mossad agents to leave the country immediately, but he did one more thing. He started to chase after all the Ethiopian Jews activists that took part in this deal. One of them is my brother. My brother became a wanted man in his own country. And to be a wanted man in Ethiopia in 1977, it means that if they will catch you, you are a dead man. Now, if you know that your life is at risk, what would you do? You will run away. You will run away to the closest country. The closest country to escape to is Sudan. Now, two problems with Sudan. Sudan is a Muslim country. It's not safe for a Jew to be there. And the distance between Gondar to Sudan, we're speaking about more than 300 miles walking from Ethiopia to Sudan. But my brother didn't have any other option. That was the only option he had. He was 30 years old, and he had to do a journey of more than 1 month from Ethiopia to Sudan. When he arrived to Sudan, he arrived to the capital city, Khartoum. He didn't have nothing. He was weak, thirsty, hungry. The only thing that he had on him that worth something was his wedding ring. He decided to sell the wedding ring. He earned some Sudanese lira, and with the money that he earned, he went to the main post office in Khartoum, Sudan, and he sent letters to his contacts telling them, I'm in Khartoum, Sudan, please save me. His contact people were the Mossad people that he worked with few months before in Ethiopia. My brother had to wait 5 months living as a homeless in the street of Khartoum, but after 5 months, not only that his message arrived, the Mossad decided to send a young Mossad agent, Danny Limor, to save my brother from the street of Khartoum. When the Mossad agent arrived to Khartoum, It was the happiest day in my brother's life because he understood two things. One, the Mossad agent just saved his life. But the other thing that he understood is that the Mossad agent will fulfill his dream to return back home to Zion after more than 2,500 years. So my brother and the young Mossad agent, Danny Limor, started to think on ways to bring the Ethiopian Jews from Ethiopia and to fulfill their dream. So in order to do that, what they needed is to do a pilot to see if Jews can come from Ethiopia to Sudan, and if they can come, maybe they can fulfill the dream for all the Ethiopian Jews. So my brother did a pilot on his own family. He did a pilot on two of his siblings, two of his brothers, young brothers that came from Ethiopia to Sudan, and they arrived to Sudan. And when the group arrived, my brother understood that the Ethiopian Jews can come and we can fulfill their dream to return back home to Zion. So from 1979 until 1984, 20,000 Ethiopian Jews left everything behind. They left their villages, their properties, their house, their land, going to the unknown, because no one promised them that in the end they will make it to Jerusalem. But they saw an opportunity, and when that opportunity came, thousands of Ethiopian Jews do the journey from Ethiopia to Sudan. Why? Just because they wanted to fulfill a dream. Out of the 20,000, 4,000 Ethiopian Jews didn't make it and died on the way from starvation, from disease. When the Ethiopian Jews already arrived to Sudan, they put them in a refugee camps. In those refugee camps, Ethiopian Jews had their Holocaust. Why? Every day between 10 to 20 people died because of the food that they gave them in the refugee camps, disease in the refugee camps. Many Ethiopian Jewish women were raped by Sudanese soldiers. Ethiopian Jews did all this just because they wanted to come to the state of Israel and to fulfill a dream. Now, unfortunately, this story of the Ethiopian Jews is a story that a lot of people don't know how much the Ethiopian Jews had to sacrifice to be here. And thank God, today we are here more than 40 years living in the state of Israel. So I don't know if you know, but in Israel we celebrate Jerusalem Day. Jerusalem Day, it's a day that we celebrate the release of Jerusalem in 1967 from the Jordanians. So every year we celebrate that day. On Jerusalem Day, the Ethiopian Jews remember the 4,000 Ethiopian Jews that didn't make it and died on the way. We have ceremonies all over the country. The main event is in Jerusalem. So we commemorate in Mount Herzl in Jerusalem at the memorial for the 4,000 Ethiopian Jews that didn't make it and died on the way, alongside the Prime Minister of Israel and the President of Israel. And we are doing that because we want to deliver a message that the Ethiopian Jews are the real heroes of the aliyah of the Ethiopian Jews. We grow up knowing that the Mossad, the Navy, the state of Israel saved us from Sudan, which is true. They did amazing stuff. But the real heroes, the one that left everything behind, the one that died on the journey, the babies. I was 6 months old when my family started the journey. The adults that did 300-mile journey walking. Those are the Ethiopian Jews, and they are the real heroes. And it's about time that people will know the story of the Ethiopian Jews the way it is. Sacrificed a lot in order to be here in Israel. I immigrated with my family when I was 1 year old in 1980. So one of the first cities that received the Ethiopian Jews was the city of Be'er Sheva, and this is where I grew up. I grew up in this house. And this neighborhood was a neighborhood that had maybe 90% Ethiopian Jews. The school that I went had the same amount, 90% Ethiopian Jews, which means when you wake up in the morning and go to school, and from school, when you go back to your house, all you see is your community. You don't really get to see the Israeli society. let's go inside the neighborhood. Most of the people that lived here are from low economic status, which means that you will create a neighborhood that will have a lot of drugs, alcohol, crime, and violence. And this is the neighborhood that I grew up into. So it wasn't easy. While growing up here, I had also a lot of identities problem, which means in one hand, I'm a black man, in the other hand, I'm an Israeli, I'm a Jewish guy, and I'm very proud. But when I was a kid, I didn't like the color of my skin, because a lot of people used to call us in different nicknames like Negro Samba and things like that. And I was asking God, as a kid, here in this neighborhood, why did you brought me as a black man to this world if it's not easy to be a black man in a country, even though you live among your brothers and sisters in a country that are vast majority are white? As a young kid also, I was embarrassed of my parents, because my parents, they came from Ethiopia and they didn't speak the language, the Hebrew language. They didn't have a good job, which means when I was a young man, and for example, if I wanted Nike shoes, I was not able to have them because my parents didn't have a lot of money. So I was looking at my parents as weak people, because what kind of parents are you if you cannot provide me new shoes or new things that I wanted as a kid? In the age of 17, I wanted to serve in the army. As you know, here it's mandatory in Israel to join the army. So in the age of 18, I joined the army and I served in the Air Force as a firefighter for 3 years. And that was the first time that I really saw the Israeli society. That was the first time that I saw the one from the kibbutz, the one from the Moshav, the one from Tel Aviv. And it was a great experience for me. By the way, I still have lots of friends from those days. So after the army, as you all know, here in Israel, they're taking the best years in our life from the age of 18 till 21. And we understand why we have to defend our country. But after 3 years in the army, we Israelis usually take 1 year off. We're traveling in the world. I traveled to South Asia for 1 year, and then I came back. I did my first degree here in Ben Gurion University in political science and government. And then I started to work in the education system. And over there, I saw how much the Israeli society doesn't know the story of the Ethiopian Jews. And therefore, after 10 years working in the education system, I decided to do something. I decided to quit my job and to open my social venture, which is Yerus, telling the story of the Ethiopian Jews. I really believe that it's about time that the Israeli society and Jewish people all over the world will know more about the Ethiopian Jews' history, the story of how they came, and what's happening those days in Israel. One of the main problems that we have is that we don't know each other here in the Israeli society. I don't know enough about the Jews from Russia. The Jews from Russia don't know enough about the Jews from Ethiopia. And therefore, when you don't know something about someone, you start to have prejudice and you start to think about him negative things. And especially with the Ethiopian Jews, it's very easy. And therefore, unfortunately, from time to time, we the Ethiopian Jews do suffer from racism and discrimination, police brutality here in Israel. And by doing what I'm doing, which is giving lectures and telling the story of the Ethiopian Jews, this is also another way to fight against racism and discrimination. And the best way to fight against racism and discrimination is to educate the people. Because I believe that the more people that will know the story of the Ethiopian Jews, the more they will know, the more we will create a better society. A society that will respect each other. A society that will understand that we are brothers and sisters. And this is how we also can make Israel even a stronger country. I was also proud to work with Hollywood on a movie called The Red Sea Diving Resort, a movie that tells the story of how the Mossad brought the Ethiopian Jews from Sudan to Israel. Unfortunately, I'm not very satisfied with the end result of this movie, because the movie is telling more about the Mossad agent, not about the Ethiopian Jews. But I can guarantee you we are working on another movie, but this time this movie will be from the Ethiopian Jewish community side and not from the Mossad side, like the Red Sea diving resort. So stay tuned. Communal.
أنا مهرة سلمون البحر.
Okay, his name is Meheret Solomon. حجي ودي خند عمتك.
كلمت لي أنا ودي أروح أتعمد صنيها حجي ميتي غير كلام سدم لي ورقة.
It's very close to 100 years. أتو مهرت سلمون. نفسي عدي متيخا نقرنا كم متيخم.
مثلا أيوه زروا مثلا أيوه بدرجي انت شره الناس اللاسه درج مصي مكري أركونا. درج مكرا وزار كونا. فريدي أزازو تباهله حونا. إسرائيل تزاربو نعقوس دوكم يلون عدورة بواسيدو. تدقسو فريدي السردو. انت السودان.
خلينا نقول نروك شو.
شمعون باروخ أكليل أيو أمانيل أيو أبيبا بدي أتوليدا موزيك دمي أمسيا تامنا أتودما يزاربو.
He's speaking about his way of coming to Israel during the time of the regime of Mengistu Haile Mariam the Derg, and the guy that they were looking for in Sudan was my late brother Ferede Aklum. He met Ferede in Sfawa, which is a refugee camp down south of Sudan, and Ferede and another hero, Zibne Berhane, took him and his 5 children out of Sudan to Israel, and today is here already 41 years living in Israel in Be'er Sheva.
منقص إسرائيل يدبر منقص إسرائيل مثل هلن إن إسرائيل تاون مست 4 عامات نحلفني تاو 4 عامات نحنت عامات سويتي كفيل اللقاف جزا أساسا جوجوم حزم اللو.
So I asked them how it is to live in Israel, and he said there is no better place to live than only here in Israel, and the government of Israel is the best government in the world, and he is living here 4 years and he feels like he's living here 1 year. All his children are married, they bought houses. By the way, his son was a Knesset member, Shimon Solomon from Yesh Atid party, and he raised great children. Today he's living with his wife in this house, and they are very proud and happy, and they are thanking God for the opportunity to live here in the Holy Land in Israel.
كما إسرائيل قدمهم إسرائيل زيابير سيرزي حلو جاهواتنا الله.
So he is saying, I asked him again about Israel, and he said, we were living in the diaspora. We know what it is, what Israel is. Israel is a beautiful country, and the government is good. And he just celebrated 100 years, and the municipality came to his house. They gave him a certificate, and they a little party in his house, and he is very, very proud and happy that he fulfilled his dream to live here in Israel. And we've been blessed to be the generation that fulfilled that dream, and we are thinking about our young generation. We want them to integrate to the Israeli society. We want them to succeed. We want them to get good position, and this is their house now, and they have to become part of the Israeli society.
Do you remember him, you growing up as a child, and him in the neighborhood?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I remember all the adults because they were the one that raised us. You know, the responsibility was not only on your parents alone. Every adult that sees someone you know, he took care of them, and of course this gentleman, Mered Solomon, is one of them.
Are your parents still alive?
So my mom still alive. Unfortunately, she had a stroke 5 years ago. My father passed away 11 years ago. But my mom, thank God, she's still alive, you know.
You know, you mentioned at some point, you mentioned your travels after the army, like many of us do, to kind of get away from the island, so to speak. When was it for you? I know it's sometimes easier to look at the society as a whole and to be able to identify the things that need to be improved. When you look inward in your own journey, when would you say that moment came for you internally? How you perhaps need to change, how you look at your own history, your past, your present, and your future?
So until the age of 30, I felt that I'm not a complete person. I always had identities problem, as I mentioned before. In the age of 30, I did something that changed my life. I went back for the first time to a roots trip, back to Ethiopia. I always felt about Ethiopia, that's Africa, jungle, blah, blah, blah. And I flew to Ethiopia and I saw a beautiful country with beautiful culture and beautiful people. I went back to the village that I was born. I saw friends of my family. They told me about my dad, who used to be a judge back then in Ethiopia. They told me how much they miss the Ethiopian Jewish community. And from them, I've learned the beginning on my community. I've learned from them how my community kept Shabbat in Ethiopia, how they kept kosher. And I realized that I'm something even bigger from what I thought. So when I came back, I really wanted to know more. So I started to do research and learn.
Did your relationship with your parents change?
Of course. When I came back, unfortunately, my father was, when I came back from this trip, my father was sick in the hospital, in Soroka Hospital. So the first stop was to visit my dad. And he didn't speak, so I whispered to his ears and I told him, Dad, I just came back from Ethiopia. You have regard from this man and from that woman. And I told him one more thing. I told my dad, I admire you, I love you, and you are a hero to me. And why it's so important? Because it took me 30 years to say those words to my dad. And I told my dad those words when I came back from this trip when he was sick in the hospital. 10 days after that, he passed away.
Wow.
So this trip really changed me as a person, changed my life, changed the way I saw my parents over the years, the way I saw this community. I understood that I have to be proud of who I am, to be proud of the place that I was born and the history of my community, and to be proud also that I'm a black man. Black is beautiful. I'm an Israeli, and I'm very proud to be Israeli. There is no other country for me and for my family and for my community. This is the country for us, and we will be here always. And we love Israel. I love myself being Jewish. This is my identity as well. But I love myself also as a black man. Black is beautiful. And when I take all those little identities within me and I create one identity that I can be proud of, I know who I am, and this is how people can look at me, because people will look at you the way you look at yourself. And when you look at yourself and you are proud of who you are, this is how people will look at you as well.
Naftali, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Ari Katz, thank you so much. And for your people over there in California, I believe, thank you so much. We couldn't see each other this year, but I hope that next year we will see each other here in Israel, here in Be'er Sheva. And until next time, may God bless you and may God bless your family and all the community.